Alright guys, what we're going to start doing is actually wiring this thing finally. Everybody's so scared of wiring their cars, and it's honestly they're scared because it's something new. It's something they don't know how to do. Wiring a car can be very, very difficult, or it can be very easy. It depends on the complexity that you want in the car. You can have 100 pressure transducers. You can have the computer rolling up and down your windows. You could have all sorts of wild stuff, or you can be very basic. And what we're going to do is, on the engine side of things, we're going to start out basic. I'm not going to add 1,000 sensors to the car, shock sensors at every corner, wheel speed sensors, drive shaft sensors, ride height sensors, infrared tire temp sensors. No, we're not doing that off the rip. What we're going to do is we're going to wire it, we're going to get it running, a couple extra sensors, boost control, and that's it. I think I showed you guys where my ECU panel is going to be. It's going to be behind the passenger seat. So anytime I want to add something, it's going to be simply remove that seat, and I got a ton of room, and then I could snake wires wherever I need it to be. My last setup was up under the dashboard with the heater boxes, and it was an absolute nightmare to do anything. Anything at all, to add anything. That's why it's behind the seat now. A lot of guys don't have heat, and they have their panels and their ECUs up behind the dashboard. I really hope you guys made it easy to remove your dashboards at that point. If you did something like that, if I were to do that, if I were to get rid of the heat and all that, I'd probably put a fiberglass dash on the car with a couple Zeus fasteners and be done with it. Just pop the thing in and out. But I have heat, I have radio, I have wipers, I have all that street functionality that I'm going to keep. I drive this car more than I race this car. So I want to be able to enjoy my drive. I don't want this 25.3 car, no heat, no radio, bouncing down the road. It just won't be fun after, X amount of time driving it. Oh, I showed you guys that the engine harness was in the car. I actually have to pull it back out, which involves taking off the intake manifold and the charge pipe. That's why none of that stuff is bolted down, because we still got to wire everything. So I got to pull it out because I got to put one of these firewall sealants. These things are sweet, come in all different sizes. I tried to go from the back way from the ECU plugs, but that relay block for the Holley harness is just too goddamn big. You can't fit it through here. So I got to go from sensor side, rivet that in, and then I can run the harness back out. There's a bunch of different ways to do things. Some people have their ways of doing it. Others have my way. But like I said, we're going basic. It's a universal harness, but it's a terminated universal harness. So the plugs are going to be where the plugs are going to be. It's not like I'm doing an unterminated harness where I got to make everything, lay everything out. Once we get that back in, there's plenty of room with the dashboard in. See the dashboard behind me, to access that plug still. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run one next to it as well, I think, so I can run extra wires. I might not put it in yet. I don't know. I might just drill the hole, and I have some blanks that I might just rivet over the hole for now, for when I need it, because I don't know where I'm going to be adding stuff. I want to keep the bay very clean looking. I don't want stuff flying everywhere and stuff mounted to the strut towers, and so I got to be very smart about where I put stuff. But I just finished up all the wiring on the back of the dashboard. We had a video about wiring this whole thing. Is it perfect? No. But again, I'm still learning. This is 1,000 times better than what was in the car originally. It's slimmed down greatly. It's half the weight. It's much better, and it's all on the dash. The only thing I'm kicking myself with right now, which I can change, is this harness right here. This is going to go out the center, down to the switch panel, and actually one of these wires in here has got to go all the way to the battery. What I'm thinking about doing is putting two connectors, two Deutsch connectors here, Deutsch. I'll never be able to say that right. Splicing these right here, cutting it out and putting the connectors in, so I can just disconnect this and pull the whole dash. With this ran, I won't be able to pull the dash like I wanted to. I built this to keep the body side of things separate from engine side of things. Fuse panel I made with the blinkers and hazards, the fuses, and a battery post. Grounds. This is for speaker. This goes to the rear harness for all my lights and everything. This is wipers, brake switch, because that's in my line lock. That's not on the pedal because that annoyed me. And headlight plug. So that's pretty much good to go. You can see it's all zip tied up. It can be better, but you know what? Heat, speaker. It can be better, but you know what? Like I said, it's much, much better than what was in here originally. I'll put this back in the car after we do that harness. So let's yank this apart and yank the harness out, mount the seal zit, and stick the harness back in. Alright, now that you got your seals in, I had to form it a little bit, and you want to make sure you don't have any metal that this harness can contact. So, start snaking this thing back through. I have this pulled through all the way up until the wideband branch out, because you can see my wideband's all the way over there, and I don't want this big wire running over there, so it's going to go out that way and down. So a couple plugs we're not using, knock sensor, not using that, but I got to pull through, so we start hooking up what's here. Cam sensor, oil pressure, run this down to this goes to the crank sensor. On this harness, there's two grounds. If you can see this eyelet here, there's one here, and there's one here. It literally says connect to cylinder head only. Only. So I'm going to do those now while everything's off. I got a stud on this side. I got to find a bolt for that side. The thing I got to change is this map sensor plug. This is like a GM plug, and I got to put a normal 3-pin pressure transducer type of plug. So cylinder ignition even. This goes over here. Ignition odd. Obviously it's that side. But I want to run this all up under the steam port. It'll just be cleaner and easier. I was hoping that I was able to just stick a lot of this back under there and get away with it that way, but everything just started to get too tight. So my original plan is what we're going to go with, and it's going to be to shorten up this one. But I think if I leave this up here, I can zip tie that there and just have to shorten up the intake air temp. I routed the wires. I showed you before the 3 wires from up here. I routed them all the way to the back. One trick you can do to help yourself out with this is, you probably can't see it, but these are all twisted together, and I just stick them in the drill and twist them together. And also what I've done is I've added in the plug for the input output that's on the harness. But what I did was, I was just talking to my buddy about it, if you use the inputs on here, you have to source sensor voltage and ground from, oh god, I'm sorry. you have to source sensor voltage and ground from the ECU over here. I didn't want to do that in this harness because you got so many other plugs you can do the inputs and outputs from. So what I did was I removed the 4 input wires and just left the 4 outputs on the harness, because this is just signals. You don't need the sensor grounds and sensor voltage. So what this is going to be, it's going to be number 1 cooling fan, number 2 cooling fan, number 3 cooling fan. Number 3 cooling fan is actually for the transmission. I'm going to stage the radiator fans because they're such big fans, they draw a ton of amperage. I'm going to stage them, you know, like 170 and 195 or something like that, so it's not a huge shock on the electrical system when they come on. And I'll just coil up the 4th one and probably figure out something for it eventually. I don't know. I was going to, boost control needs 2 inputs and outputs, so I can't use it for that. So I'll figure out what to use this one output for. And then what I'll do is I'll plug in that J3 plug and start doing inputs. Like I have transmission fluid temperature, line pressure, converter pressure, back pressure. You know, there's like 6 or 8 sensors that have to go on there and get used. So we'll get to that. Those are all gonna be separately ran. Now, I really can't do anything about this because I'm all out of sheathing, some Raychem for this wiring and this wiring, so I really can't do anything. So I'm just laying it out for now and down into near the ECU panel where it's got to go. Stick the dashboard in where it's got to go. But I want to tell you guys, for something like this, there's 2 things you should be getting out to buy. One of them is a giant bag of zip ties. Home Depot, like 15 bucks, 800 count, 8-inch zip ties, and a pair of zip tie soft wire cutters. These are from Snap-on, but they have, I got them on sale on Snap-on, it's the only reason I bought them. But they have similar ones on Amazon for like $10 that do the same job. And what these do is they clip the zip tie super close, and then you don't got no burr to catch you. And these are nice to clip small wires too. But I'm saying, like, you don't get cut on this. It's a beautiful thing. Do yourself a favor and pick these up. These are a must when you're wiring a car. I don't care what anyone says. These are a must. Well, got the dashboard in. Dashboard's in. It's bolted down. I'm not really worried about the center console anytime soon. I don't even have a carpet anymore. I threw it out. I threw the old one out because, well, it fit like crap. Now that we have the dashboard in, I can start running harnesses out, like the headlight harness. And what I did was, someone asked me how I did this, and I'm going to show you. Before it was just a factory plug plugged in, zip tied in the frame rail, but this time I got a connector, made a bracket, welded it to the frame rail before it was painted, and this bolts to it, and it's a douche connector, and it just plugs right in. I get the closed barrel ones from Deutsch. They're just easier to crimp. Everybody thinks you need some big $300, $400 crimper from DMC, and I use these. I got them from Matco, but they say Tool-Aid on them. And they're the same crimpers. You just got to buy 3 of them, and it goes from 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and 22. And I think these 3 were under $100, and it's from a company, I'm assuming it's Tool-Aid. I don't know if you can see it. 18, 880, 18, 890, 18, 860. So those are what I use to crimp these. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut these off. And just like that. Nice crimp. That's why I like these. They're just so much easier than the open ones. Closed barrel terminals. I always try to make sure I get the right ones wherever I order these from. I'm not a company loyalist. I pretty much go wherever I find these the cheapest, because these can get expensive with how many you'll end up using. After some testing, I got it all working right. The only thing I gotta do is replace this flasher, because good lord, that thing is slow. My third brake light working. Yep. Well, we know the wiring's correct. I just have to terminate it, and like I said, it's just easier have this inline switch in the line lock, simply because that one around the brake pedal sucks. Now, while I'm in here, I might as well start getting this all situated and wired. There are a bunch of wires that you got to put to this to get this to work correctly. We're going to get these plugged in before I stick it into the dash, mount it for good. Don't mind my kids screaming in the background. There's that one. Told you guys about the GPS. What are you doing? Give him something softer before he wrecks my car. Here. Can I see that? Here. Rather give him a piece of plastic. So we have the GPS wire. We have the USB 2.0 end plugged in, and this is probably just going to rest behind my center console, or I'll make a small port for this to bolt in the center console. You're not going to use this often, so I just might coil it up behind the dash. Oh, that one, and then this one. Red and black they want you to go continuous power, so to the battery. I have a positive post under the dash here that I'm going to run constant power to for stuff like this. I think it'll just be easier than, I'll just run like a 8 gauge from the battery up to it just to power stuff like this. I don't want to run this all the way into the battery. That's absurd. Yes. Easy, relax. Okay, so we got the harnesses, and I just messed up my little bum. GPS is all hooked up. Yeah, all back of the dash, so since there's really nothing behind it, I can get this stuck down and in, and do the rest from the bottom side and get this all mounted. Oh, this child. I think I got about as much out of him as I think I'll be able to get for today. But let's leave this. Find the flashlights that he played with and dropped. And you can see the Holly dash in there. I gotta make a mount for this side because I cut this part of the mount off the dashboard. But I think I can just strap it and screw it up. It's not a big deal. But I got all the wiring coming out right here. I gotta see where to run this antenna. You see all this down here? You can see all these. This powers and grounds. There's the GPS antenna. There's the CAN cable. That's easy. That runs over here. I might not even need this extension harness. That'll be super sweet. So I might be able to just take this extension harness out. That looks like it's going to be plenty long to plug in. And I got to run this GPS and USB cord. But I'm going to be done for today. This kiddo doesn't want to play no more. You don't want to play no more. Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye.